Jennifer Mee. 15-year-old Jennifer Mee was an anonymous teenager from a typical American family in Florida. But she was to become an internationally famous media sensation across America because of her non-stop hiccups. Suddenly, the hiccups stopped and the fame vanished. Mee was implicated in the murder of 22-year-old Shannon Griffin, all because she lured him into an alleyway where he was shot by one of her pals. Although she did not pull the trigger, under Florida law, she is just as culpable for the murder shooter. She had invited Griffin to an abandoned spot under the pretense of selling him cannabis. Once there, two of her pals robbed him at gunpoint, but there was a struggle and the gun went off. During her trial, the court heard how a taped phone call between Mee and her mom, which directly implicated her in the murder. Mee was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Her co-defendants, LaRon Ryford and Lamont Newton, were also convicted of first-degree felony murder and sentenced to life in prison. She can be seen crying in court during her sentencing. Dylan Shoemaker. This is Dylan Shoemaker. Dylan Shoemaker was left to babysit his girlfriend's young child, and by the end of the night, the child was dead. According to court documents, Shoemaker would fatally beat the child when he would not stop crying. Dylan Shoemaker would be arrested and convicted of the murder, along with child abuse charges. When he was to be present in the courtroom, he allegedly told the guards that they should watch the performance he was going to put on in the courtroom. During Dylan Shoemaker's trial in court, Shoemaker cried and apologized to the victim's mother, Drew, that he did not mean to kill Austin. Ashley, who convicted him for the murder, did not accept his apology. He had his sad face ready and his privilege intact when State Supreme Court Justice M. William Bowler was ready to hand down punishment, except one thing was unexpectedly standing in his way: his own words. "I'm a 16-year-old blonde," Bowler read to Shoemaker in a now viral video. "Probably all I have to do is cry, and they're going to feel sorry for me," Shoemaker told her, referring to the jury. Teenager found guilty was sentenced to a maximum punishment of a life sentence of 25 years. Brandon Spencer. Brandon Spencer was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison in a shooting that wounded 4 people at a Halloween party nearly 2 years ago on the University of Southern California campus. Prosecutors argued in court that Spencer committed the shooting in retaliation for a gunshot wound he suffered a year earlier. They said the shooting was further motivated by a fight between Spencer and Hall on Twitter. Police maintained that Spencer attempted to flee the scene, discarding his shirt in the process. Spencer was found near USC parking lot half a mile from the shooting scene. Police recovered a black revolver, believed to be Spencer's, 3 hours after the shooting. A public safety officer testified that he saw Spencer lift the gun out of his waistband. The officer later identified Spencer out of the possible suspects detained due to his height, clothing, and skin shade. Before the sentence was announced, Spencer's attorney pleaded with the judge for a lenient sentence. Brandon Spencer pounded his forehead twice on the desk in court as the judge read the sentence for his conviction on 4 counts of attempted murder. Sheriff's deputies gathered around Spencer as he sobbed following another emotional court appearance. When he was convicted in February, he shouted expletives. Micaden Payne. 3 young Michigan men who were teens when they were a part of a rock-throwing incident that killed a motorist on Interstate 75 were put on probation after spending more than 3 years in custody, where their case was stuck in court. The court hearing Tuesday ended a saga that began in 2017 when Ken White was struck by a rock thrown from an overpass in Genesee County. He was a passenger in a van. Skaleski, 19, Trevor Gray, 18, and Micaden Payne, 19, appeared in Genesee County Court. Their case lasted years because of a dispute over whether they would be treated as juveniles or adults. The 3 stood in front of a different judge, Duncan Beagle, who asked them, "What were you guys thinking?" "I don't think we were thinking at all. We were just dumb kids," Skaleski said. After completing a year of probation, the 3 will not have a felony record, defense attorney Frank Manley said. The person accused of actually throwing the rock, Kyle Enger, now 21, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in 2019 and was sentenced to 39 months in prison. He was released in January with credit for time served in jail before his plea. John Freeman. This is John Freeman. 17-year-old Freeman killed Isabella Tennant at the girl's great-parents' home in Niagara Falls in August 2012. Tennant was spending the night there while her mother was at work. Freeman was a neighbor of the homeowners who said they left the girl in his care when they went to bed. Investigators say Freeman disposed of Isabella's body in a garbage container with the help of an 18-year-old friend, Tyler Best. Best took a plea deal in August, admitting to tampering with physical evidence and hindering the prosecution. He faces a more lenient sentence of 16 months to 4 years in jail when he learns his fate later this month. Freeman was sentenced to 22 years to life in prison. He can be seen crying while hearing this sentence. Martise Fuller. This is Martise Fuller. Fuller blamed Kaylee and her mother for his expulsion from school and removal from the football team. They said Fuller, 15 years old at the time, plotted to get a gun, ammunition from a friend, and had a relative dispose of a gun the state crime lab said matched the one used in the shooting. The mother and daughter were upstairs in their home the afternoon of May 9, 2019, shortly after returning home from school. The family was preparing to go on a camping trip when Fuller snuck in through the open garage. Kaylee was shot 5 times and died at the scene. Stephanie Juga identified Fuller as the person she came face-to-face with on the second floor of her home and was later shot as she tried to hide. Juga later found Kaylee unresponsive on her bedroom floor. A judge sentenced Martise Fuller to life in prison with no chance for release for killing 15-year-old Kaylee Juga and injuring her mother. After the verdict was brought down, Fuller showed the first signs of emotion during the 6-day trial, crying, at times resting his head on the table in front of him. It would be the only time Fuller showed emotion during the entirety of the case. Shondell Jackson. This is Shondell Jackson. Jackson was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide and robbery of 21-year-old University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee student Nathan Potter. Jackson and 20-year-old Derek Thomas attempted to rob Potter, who was walking home to his apartment, and shot him to death. Potter wasn't carrying any money. Jackson showed no remorse or sorrow during the trial over the victim's death or his crime, and even smiled at the victim's family at one point when he was escorted out of the courtroom. After being sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole, Jackson grew violent, cursing at the judge. The police in the courtroom acted quickly. He had to be restrained by officers who utilized pepper spray. While his reaction was intense, members of Jackson's family in the back of the courtroom started hurling insults at Potter's mother after the sentencing, saying, I hate you all," and "God's the judge." That was it for today's video. We hope you like it. If you want to see more interesting videos, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button.